Back in 2012, the hype for GTA 5 was insane, and it only got bigger when it was revealed that the map was going to be larger than GTA 4, San Andreas, and Red Dead Redemption combined. But that hype quickly died down when people realized the reasoning. GTA 5's map is littered with mountains, highways, and other seemingly boring areas, and to date, it's been potentially the biggest complaint with the game. However, I tend to disagree with the majority because they completely ignore the reasoning behind it, which is why today I'm going to be defending GTA 5's map. Let me start off by saying that I think the environment was perfectly curated to the single-player experience, and any other design would have killed the story before it even got started. As a quick refresher, Trevor and Michael used to do work together in the early 2000s until Michael eventually faked his own death and ran off with the money. But a couple hours into the game, Trevor tracks down Michael, which is where the purpose of the bigger map comes into play. This gives the player the idea that Trevor's driving a considerable distance to find Michael. Now, I know realistically it's only about a 5 to 10 minute drive, but you get the feeling it's longer because most things in video games happen instantly. And also, the change in scenery from mountains and small towns, transitioning over to a big city with high rises and lots of people also helps to paint the picture. Thus, when Trevor finally meets up with the DeSanta family and confronts Michael, it's a lot more impactful than if Trevor had been living in the city the whole time and kind of just drove down the street to Michael's house. And if Trevor was already in the city, it would have raised the question about how they never run into each other while they were already living so close together. You could make the argument that one part of the story doesn't really justify an entire map's design, which is a reasonable take, I get it. Except, even after this point, the map still makes a lot of sense to the overall narrative and enjoyment of the game. Starting with the narrative, Rockstar needed to create the illusion that there were some low-key places to hide out when the heat got high. I understand it's a video game, but it honestly kind of bothers me when you commit such a massive crime in the city, and then you kind of just mosey back on down to your house like nothing happened. Instead, the upper area of the map allows for a more realistic hiding spot when need be. There's a lot of little areas hidden in and around the mountains that appear throughout the story mode. A good example being Trevor's airstrip and hangar thing. A place that was kind of in the middle of nowhere, away from the city, and away from any other types of structures, and you deliver goods here from time to time. Of course, instead of bringing them to the city where there's going to be a lot more eyes on you and a higher chance of getting caught. Or after you find yourself in some trouble from kidnapping Madrazo's wife.
Did you kill him? What kind of fucking animal do you take me for? No, I didn't kill him. Oh, fuck. But I did kidnap his wife. Oh, no.
Michael and Trevor kind of hide themselves at the top of the map. But my favorite example of this was actually the secluded dock where you met with the FIB. You went there to discuss some plans and carry out the chemical lab raid. Again, the point being that they're staying safe and making sure nobody hears their conversations or catches on to what they're doing. As opposed to missions such as surveying the score, where you're closely following two trucks carrying gold and looking around the Union Depository Bank in broad daylight. I mean, yeah, that's not suspicious at all. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but it's kind of just stupid. Regardless, the overall point I'm trying to make is that the map was perfectly crafted for the story, and you're never really forced to trek through the mountains in a boring way. If anything, they can just be helpful for dodging the cops from time to time. However, I recognize that most of you already finished the story over 10 years ago, so it'd be unfair for me to use it as the only excuse for the map. GTA Online is probably where most of you dedicate your time to nowadays. And this is where I'll admit some problems do start to arise. But first, I'd like to highlight that the mountains and just a bigger map with a lot of quote-unquote nothingness has been very beneficial to the multiplayer experience. Kind of seems like everywhere you go around the map has some sort of mission or business that takes place there, many of which are locations that wouldn't make sense if they didn't have mountains surrounding them. One that stood out to me right away was the various motorcycle club businesses that are outside of the city. I mean, I'm sure we've all owned one at some point. They were the backbone of GTA Online for a while. And, well, yes, it can be a little annoying to get out to and repetitive, making massive treks around the map. If the entire map was residential streets and city buildings, GTA 4, I think that it'd end up being even more mundane. I also think that the boredom people have tied to the mountains has more to do with the level design and the vehicle mechanics than the actual mountains themselves. I mean, sure, I roll my eyes too every time I'm doing a KO Perico and you're forced to fly over these massive mountains, but at the end of the day, Rockstar chose to make it this way. They could have given you a different route. They also could have made flying and driving just a little more difficult. I mean, pretty much both of them just consist of holding down the right trigger. There's no challenge to it at all, which is why I also think a lot of people have a negative opinion of the highways. Not because of the roads themselves, but because the driving is so mindless and easy in this game. And I can admit that yes, there's a lot of mountains around and they all just seem to be covered in boring old grass, but again, they make the areas around them more concealed than if the entire map was just flattened out, which I think has been a good thing for the game. Also, real-life California has a lot of mountains, but it's a video game, so that's kind of a weak argument, but thought I'd mention it anyways. There's a couple other things I could also bring up, like the junk energy chime trials that make a good use of the mountains, or cool camping spots and NPCs you can come across, because I know some people really appreciate that stuff, but at the end of the day, I think I've made my case. Did they go a little overboard with the amount of mountains? Yes. But I think people over-exaggerate how annoying it is, and completely forget about all the other positives that the specific map design has brought to the game. So, with that being said, I'll be replying to all comments on this video, so please let me know your thoughts, and as always, subscribe to help me feed my family.